It may surprise you that at this very moment the moon's shadow is just now reaching Kansas City, Kansas. And in less than 10 minutes it'll reach us here in Kirkwood. That means the shadow is traveling at about 1,500 miles per hour west to east across the country. Actually, the shadow is traveling even faster than that, about 2,300 miles per hour, because that's how fast the moon is traveling as it orbits the Earth. So why does the shadow appear to be going only 1,500? Any guesses? It's because the Earth is rotating, and so the Earth's surface is spinning beneath the moon at about 800 miles per hour in the same direction. So these two velocities subtract to give a relative velocity of about 1,500 miles per hour. 1,500 miles per hour is still pretty fast, about 3 times faster than a typical jet airplane. The moon's shadow has actually started its path today about an hour and a half ago in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, about midway between Tokyo and Seattle. But it was just 55 minutes ago that the shadow started crossing the U.S. as it passed over Salem, Oregon, on the west coast. About 39 minutes from now, it'll finish its path across the U.S. as it passes Charleston, South Carolina. And then the shadow heads out over the Atlantic and completes its path about 2 hours from now, roughly 700 miles off the coast of western Africa. Here's some fun facts. Contrary to popular belief, total eclipses are really not that rare. On average, they occur somewhere on the Earth every 18 months or so. That's about 6 or 7 total eclipses every decade. But these eclipses occur along very narrow strips, sometimes only 20 to 30 miles wide, and these narrow strips very often fall on oceans. Recall that about 70% of the Earth's surface is covered by water, or on very remote, uninhabited regions of the planet. The last total eclipse, on March 9, 2016, for example, occurred over the North Pacific Ocean. 99% of its path was over water. The only land it passed over was a small section of Indonesia. And the Earth's next total eclipse is next summer, on July 2, 2018. But it will mostly fall across the southern Pacific Ocean and some mostly uninhabited regions of Chile and Argentina. One thing that makes today's total eclipse rather special to us is that it cuts across the entire U.S., but does not enter into any other country. It has thus been dubbed the All-American Eclipse. The last time that happened was 99 years ago in the summer of 1918, and it will be another 300 years before it happens again. Some scientists think that this may be the most watched total eclipse of all times, given that about 12 million people live in the path of the eclipse and another 200 million live within a day's drive of it. Of all the towns and cities in the U.S., the two with the largest population in the path of the eclipse are Nashville, Tennessee, and, that's right, St. Louis, Missouri. The last total eclipse to occur in the contiguous 48 states was in 1979, back when Gloria Gaynor's hit "I Will Survive" was topping the pop charts. And during that eclipse, the path of the moon's shadow just clipped the northwesternmost corner of the country, Washington State, Montana, and North Dakota, before heading north into Canada. The last total eclipse to reach Missouri occurred on August 7, 1869, just 4 years after the end of the Civil War. That eclipse actually stretched from Russia up through Alaska, western Canada, down across eastern U.S., and into the Atlantic Ocean. It missed downtown St. Louis by only about 10 miles. Although it's been almost 150 years since a total eclipse has passed through Missouri, you'll only have to wait 7 years until the next one comes through. That's right, on April 8th of 2024, an eclipse will cut up through Mexico, Texas, Arkansas, and Missouri, and continue all the way up into New York State, Vermont, Maine, and eastern Canada. That eclipse will pass within about 30 miles of St. Louis. Because the moon will be somewhat closer to the Earth during the 2024 eclipse, totality at the center of the path will last more than 4 minutes. In comparison, today's eclipse totality will only last about a minute and a half here in Kirkwood and about 2.5 minutes in the center of the path. Of all the towns and cities in the U.S., Carbondale, Illinois has the unique distinction of being the one city that will be in the dead center of both this current eclipse and the eclipse of 2024. And when was the last time an eclipse passed through St. Louis? The last total eclipse to pass through this area occurred 575 years ago. Long, long, long before there was a Kirkwood or a St. Louis or a Missouri or a United States for that matter. Back then, the event was probably witnessed by a few 100,000 Native Americans who happened to be living along its path. Right now, the moon shadow is just starting to pass over Mizzou's campus in Columbia, Missouri. It should arrive here in about 4.5 minutes. So what's so special about totality? So what that it gets completely dark in the middle of the day? Well, for one thing, some animals start behaving strangely. Their senses tell them that it's nighttime, but it's the middle of the day. Also, there is usually a noticeable temperature drop as the sun's rays disappear. If it's clear enough, you can see all the stars and planets that you would usually only see at night. But the real show is the sun's corona. The corona is the glowing atmosphere of gases surrounding the sun. The corona is there all the time, but the brightness of our normal daytime sky makes it impossible to see. During the total eclipse, however, the corona becomes visible, and it's considered an amazing sight. Another thing to look for, before totality and then again after it, something called shadow bands. Strange, undulating, snake-like shadows that you might see against a white or gray surface. Check around you about a minute before the total eclipse starts, and then again right afterward. So how long does the eclipse last? Some total eclipses last a few seconds. Others can last up to 5 or 6, even 7 minutes. It all depends on the precise position of the Earth and the Moon, and on where in the eclipse path you happen to be observing from. If you were at DeSoto High School today in DeSoto, Missouri, that's about 30 miles south of here, you'd be right in the center of the eclipse path, and totality there will last 2 minutes and 40 seconds. Here at Kirkwood High School, the total eclipse will last about half that long, 1 minute and 28 seconds. Webster Groves, which is slightly farther from the center of the eclipse path, will only have a totality of about 1 minute 14 seconds. So once again, Kirkwood beats Webster. Clayton High School is just at the very edge of the eclipse path, so their totality will only last 22 seconds today. And St. Louis U High is just 1 block outside of the eclipse path, and so they get nothing. At 1:18 today, the sun over SLU will be 99.996% blocked, but that doesn't quite do it. Their sky will never get dark. They will see no stars, no corona. They'll miss out on the entire show. So why are solar eclipses so potentially dangerous for your eyes? At this very moment, about 99% of the sun's rays are being blocked by the moon. So you may wonder why it's more dangerous to look at the sun right now. On a normal, non-eclipse day, the sun is so bright that it's uncomfortable to look directly at. We instinctively squint and turn away. This instinct has evolved to protect our retinas from getting burned by the sun's strong rays. But right now, during this partial eclipse phase, enough of the sun's rays are being blocked that it's not uncomfortable to look directly at. But enough rays are getting through to still cause serious permanent burns to your retina. Once the sun is completely blocked out, as it will be in about 2 minutes, we will sound a horn to let you know it's safe to take the eclipse glasses off. In fact, if you leave the glasses on during the total eclipse, you'll miss out on everything. Once the total eclipse is over and the sun's rays just start to edge around the moon again, it's important to put the glasses immediately back on. In fact, those first few rays of light after the eclipse are even more dangerous than the last few rays before the eclipse. Can you figure out why? It's because during the minute and a half of total darkness, your pupils will have dilated quite a bit. That is, they will have gotten much larger to allow you to see better in the darkness. That means your eyes will be even more vulnerable to the damage of the sun's rays. We will sound a horn twice, about 5 seconds before the eclipse is over, to let you know to look away from the sun and to put the eclipse glasses back on. This is very important so that no one suffers any damage to their eyes.